The anti-rape movement. Sensitive topics are discussed in this video, such as rape and sexual assault. All throughout history, women have been treated like objects. It's been just over 100 years since they gained the right to vote. 50 years ago, they had just gained the right to get an abortion. Just 7 years ago, women gained the right to marry other women. They gained so many other rights over the past century when they should have had those rights in the first place. Women have been fighting to gain what should have been theirs for the longest time. One of the things women have fought for and changed is the laws and concepts surrounding rape. Rape is defined as forced sexual intercourse without consent from one party. The first law against rape is found in around 1900 BC in Hammurabi's Code, a series of laws created by the king of Babylon. The law says, if a man violate the wife, betrothed, or child wife of another man who has never known a man and still lives in her father's house, and sleep with her and be surprised, this man shall be put to death, but the wife is blameless. This is one of the first laws against rape, and the law holds the rapist accountable, not the victim. The same concept appears in the 11th century when the penalty for rape was death. Since women were considered property of her husband or father, rape was considered property damage, not a crime against the victim herself. The 12th century is where we start to go backwards. Though rape started to be viewed as a crime of violence, victims were punished along with their rapists, and yes, the punishment was still death. In the 15th century, fathers or husbands would fine the rapist for their crime. During the 1600s, some of the people were arguing that there was no way to tell the credibility of the reports because there was little to no evidence of the crime. This idea most likely made victims think that no one would believe them if they reported their rape. In the 1800s, it was perfectly legal for slave masters to rape their slaves, and wives could not turn down intercourse with their husbands. The spark that helped light the flame of this movement was a young black woman by the name of Joanne Little. Joanne was 21 years old when she was raped in her cell at Beaufort County Jail in 1974. Clarence Elligood, a 62-year-old white guard, raped Joanne in her cell in the middle of the night. Joanne then caught him off guard and stabbed him 11 times with an ice pick that he had brought with him into her cell. She was able to escape because Clarence was the only guard on duty that night. Eventually, she was caught and tried for second-degree murder. She argued that it was self-defense, and the jury declared her not guilty. She became the first rape survivor to be acquitted of using deadly force to resist rape. Joanne's story showed other victims that they could get justice against their rapists, although they didn't have to go to the same lengths she did. Also in 1974, rape shield laws were introduced. One of the laws says that if a woman was raped by a previous sexual partner, the report is still valid. Just because someone consents to intercourse once doesn't mean they will every time. The laws also give women privacy when prosecuting rapists. That means a woman's sexual history and previous sexual partners are not allowed to be used against them in court. A big thing the anti-rape movement encouraged was the number of reported rapes. In 1960, the number was at about 17,000 reported rapes. Fast forward 15 years, right after the Joanne Little case, the number was at 56,000. Taking population increases into consideration, this is still a lot more cases reported than since the 60s. In 1972, rape crisis centers were introduced. Victims need help to deal with the trauma from their rape, and a few women answered the call, literally. The first crisis center, Toledo United Against Rape, now called the YWCA, was a place for rape survivors to report their rape, and to have a person who will listen and believe them. At first, Toledo United Against Rape struggled to find people to work the phone, but now all crisis centers have a 24/7 line for victims to call. The anti-rape movement has had a positive social impact on our society. Since the 70s, there have been multiple rallies and protests against rape, like the #MeToo movement. Founded by Tanara Burke in 2006, the #MeToo movement helps sexual assault and rape victims share their stories. Crisis centers, like the YWCA, are national and most have a 24-hour call line for those who need to report rape, assault, or abuse. Unfortunately, in this day and age, drugs like rohypnol have made rape and sexual assault easier for offenders. Rohypnol, a very potent sedative, is often crushed up and slipped into a girl's drink. Since rohypnol has no taste or smell, it goes undetected and can render you unconscious before you know what happened. Rapists take this chance to rape girls and women. It is considered rape because you cannot get consent if the other party is not in a state to do so. Being roofied, a nickname for rohypnol, can also cause a lapse in memory, so a victim may not even know if they've been raped. This drug is extremely dangerous, so women must be extra careful not to take drinks they didn't see made and to pour their own drinks. They shouldn't have to do this, but it's a necessary measure to protect themselves from offenders. I would also like to acknowledge the rape of men. Yes, it's uncommon, but it still happens. In 2016, the government started to add the reports filed by men to the reported rape count. The number jumped from about 92,000 to about 132,000 in the years 2015 and 2016. The focus has been on women because the movement was a big part of women's rights and how they gained those rights. Some important statistics to consider are 69% of victims of all attempted or completed rapes are under 34 years old. 1 out of 6 women are victims of completed or attempted rape. 1 out of 10 rape victims are male. 3% of American men have experienced attempted or completed rape. Other big risk factors of rape are STIs, mental trauma, and pregnancy. Though there is a very low chance of a woman getting pregnant from rape, about a 3 to 5% chance, adding in a lot of other factors, there are around 7,750 to 12,500 children conceived from rape each year in the United States. This is a big issue because a lot of victims that get pregnant after being raped are not ready for a child or do not want a child. Rape victims can also suffer from STIs, sexually transmitted infections, or STDs, like chlamydia or gonorrhea. Victims can also get PTSD and are more likely to turn to drugs and alcohol than someone who hasn't been raped. The anti-rape movement is considered a frontier because it's the first time women stood together to create lasting change regarding the laws and concept of rape. We have made a lot of progress since the 70s, especially in awareness and concept. The anti-rape movement has changed so many lives and will always be remembered as the time when we fought for something, and we changed it for the better. If you are struggling with rape or sexual assault, call or visit the YWCA for help.